What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Nick 4K video. Today we're checking out a video from Channel Awesome. Now, I've been watching Doug for, I don't know, like 10 plus years. He's been around for a long time. He's like one of the OG movie review guys. If you didn't know, I call him Doug, but the Nostalgia Critic, that's what he's known as. Nostalgia Critic Doug. And he's got a whole squad of people. He's always doing things and having a good time. But one of the biggest things he's known for, besides, being a big personality, was he was kind of one of the first online original trilogy supremacists. Not super hardcore, like there are other ones that like really overdo it, right? But he was definitely one of those guys who was like a big prequel hater. And so a lot of these guys, of which I've noticed, and maybe it's just me, but I don't think it's just me who noticed this, but a lot of these guys who hated on George Lucas for the prequels have since, after seeing what happened with the sequels and what Disney did with them, they have since flipped their opinions, and they now see more of the good in the prequels. And it almost seems like a lot of them feel bad because, from a certain perspective, George Lucas didn't continue because of the hate he got for the prequels. So I do think that a lot of these older content creators, the guys who were here first before the prequel fans were old enough to make their own content, they did a lot of damage, and I don't think they realized how much damage they did until Disney took over and damaged themselves. So we're going to check this out. I'm going to guess this video is going to be about this, because this video is called "Should George Lucas Return to Star Wars?" Is he apologizing for all the damage he did? Guess we'll find out. Oh, and before we actually begin, make sure to like, subscribe, turn notifications for more videos, and of course, if you have any cool ideas for future videos you want to see me check out, let me know in the comments, and if I do that, I'll give you a shout out. Now, with that said, let's begin.
What? Another YouTube video talking about Star Wars? You're kidding. There's so few of those. Alright, so I've made a few videos talking about my thoughts on Star Wars, both in the past and present. I've done them on, these videos, Doug Rambles. I've done them on Nostalgia Critic. So, yeah, you could argue, is there really that much left that I have to say? And I try not to talk about unless I have what I think is something, kind of interesting, I think worth talking about. And something I've heard a lot from people that just hate Star Wars right now, say it's the worst thing ever, blah, 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 is bring back Lucas. And if you were to ask this maybe, I don't know, 20 years ago or something like that, everyone'd say, get rid of Lucas. What are you, crazy? He's nuts. Like, he constantly ruined Star Wars over and over and over. But it did get me thinking about something recently that I never really thought about before when it comes to Lucas and Star Wars, or maybe I did, but I think could really connect to what's going on now with Star Wars. And before I talk about that, I guess I should give my thoughts just super quick on my thoughts on Star Wars in general, what kind of a fan I am, because that's definitely going to play a big part in what you think about Star Wars, because there are people that kind of treat it like a religion now. I mean, there even were back then. People have always made jokes about that. I like the original movies. I didn't like the prequels. I'm definitely not an apologist for that. I'm a massive maker-funner of those movies. And then I discovered Clone Wars late, but I did really enjoy it, the show. Like, that's one of the better Star Wars things to come out. And then in terms of recent Star Wars, when Disney took it over, it's been very hit or miss. I think you can definitely say there's more misses now than hits, but the hits for me are kind of worth it. I like seeing Clone Wars come back. I wasn't the biggest fan of Rebels, but there's things in there that I think are some of the best in Star Wars. Andor is phenomenal. I love the way Mandalorian started off. I think it had a very weak ending. And then, there's some stuff in between, like I think Ahsoka is alright, there's a few of those shows. And then there's stuff that's just spectacularly bad. Like, I loved Obi-Wan for how bad it was. Parts of Rise of Skywalker are kind of so bad they're good, but it's mostly just lame. Overall, I don't see it as like this huge giant F up where everything has just gone, straight to hell, because I do see some really good stuff that comes out of it. I'm not someone that says, burn Kathleen Kennedy, anything like that, but I do think she's in that group of people, along with like Spielberg and Zemeckis, Frank Marshall and all that. I mean, they were a part of this, pretty much like this group. They were all kind of working off each other. That's kind of dated now. It feels like they're a little passé and they're not really catching on to what's being done nowadays to varying degrees. Like, I think Zemeckis is really far behind on.
Okay, so I'm just going to add to that. I'm not going to go super deep into this. It's time for Kathleen Kennedy to give up her leadership role with the Lucasfilm, the whole Star Wars creativity part. It's time for her to move on. Give it to someone else. She has other creatives underneath her that are doing a good job, and that's great. but Kathleen Kennedy has I wouldn't say it has done absolutely nothing good, but she has passed her prime for what this franchise needs. I'm not going to go super deep into it. Like I said, I'm just going to state that that's my thoughts. If you want to hear an actual full video of like my concerns and my issues with Star Wars, for those of you who might be new to the channel who don't know, I started this channel as a Star Wars channel. For, I don't know, like the first 3 years of this channel existing, it was all Star Wars content. It was right around the same time the sequels were just starting to come out. So I was posting around that time and I was super hyped. I remember when The Force Awakens came out, talking about how like it was pretty good, but it was also not very good either. It was very much of a people were saying like a copy. I wouldn't say it was necessarily a copy of A New Hope, more of like a, hey, can I copy your homework type of thing. Not necessarily a full copy, but one of those things where it's like, it's still very close, right? And I think it's one of those things too, where we all said The Force Awakens is fine, but the sequels it's setting up are going to be off the charts. And then Last Jedi came out, and yeah, we don't talk about that. And we especially don't talk about The Rise of Skywalker. It's just one of those things where like it dropped the ball. And I have hundreds of older videos you want to go through and look through this stuff. Maybe I'll do like a, hey, here's my recent thought on Star Wars, and I'll break down every single one of those movies and TV shows. You want to hear my thoughts on that? Let me know in the comments below. But I'm going to tell you right now, I'm very just apathetic towards Star Wars at this point. When you're talking about movies and franchises and different stuff you used to like, the only thing worse than saying it's bad now is saying I don't care about it. Because here's the thing. If you say something's good, great. If you say something's bad, at least you have an opinion on it. For me, I just don't even care anymore. I mean, looking back at 22-year-old me when I started this channel, and I took some breaks here and there. The guys who've been around since then, you guys know that. And I've been very inconsistent, but that's gonna change. It's all changing now. I always say that. We'll see. But looking back at 22-year-old me when I made this channel, I was so excited for Star Wars. I thought, man, in 10 years, Star Wars is gonna blow up. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be the best thing ever. And I just don't care about it. And yes, I do blame Kathleen Kennedy. That's it. Regardless of what you want to say, she's the top dog. I blame her. Get her out of here. If you can't do your job, get out of here. She's done some great things in the past for entertainment, and that's awesome, like he mentioned. Great. She's past her prime. Get her out of here. She's not doing the right job. Time to go. I honestly think that Kathleen Kennedy has some type of like dirt on somebody. Like there's someone she has dirt on. I don't know if it's actually like, you know, the top dog. I don't know. She has dirt on somebody that she's still there. I don't get it. It's just like 343 with Halo, right? Under Microsoft. Like there has to be someone at that studio who has dirt on like Bill Gates or something, or on Phil Spencer. There's no way that 343 should still be in charge of Halo. All right, so I got off on kind of a tangent. Let's get back to this video.
A lot of that, but Spielberg sometimes can, you know, still catch on to what's, you know, kind of inspiring and new and influential. And Kennedy, I guess, is kind of on the lower end of that. I mean, you do definitely have stuff from Star Wars, like I said, that has been very, very cool and inspiring and awesome, like I said, with Andor and so forth. But there's definitely stuff that isn't and feels very, very dated, very boring on top of that, too. The Acolyte, I didn't hate as much as everyone else did, but I thought was very dull, very underwhelming. So that's my thoughts on Star Wars in general, both past and modern Star Wars. So the question is, well, should Lucas come back? And what was making me sort of ponder this is I was thinking back to Clone Wars because I really do like that show. And I'm thinking, well, that show wouldn't exist if it wasn't for not just Lucas making Star Wars, but Lucas having these ideas for the prequels. And again, the prequels, I think, are just indisputably bad. Like, it's weird that there's people saying, we want more of that. Like, really? But there are definitely ideas there. But here's the thing. When you look at the first Star Wars movie, I do like the first Star Wars movie, but there have been countless videos talking about Star Wars was saved in the editing, and they're correct. You know, this is still a very imaginative, interesting world. It really borrows a lot, not just from, you know, classic myths, but also borrows from, you know, just things that Lucas liked, you know, like Flash Gordon and stuff like that. And it came together in a way that I don't even think he could imagine, like this blowing up and everything. So from that point on, he always had people helping out. Like, he didn't direct Empire and Jedi, but he had the ideas, he had his vision in there. But even the vision was always changing. Again, you see this by the fact that he keeps editing the movies in different ways. Clunky, what is that about? There's all sorts of things like that are pretty silly and don't make sense, but at the same time, there's still a good foundation, there's still a good idea there. And that got me really thinking about, again, in Clone Wars, where, yes, Lucas made the first Star Wars and had a big hand in the Star Wars movies, but then you also had the prequels, which were entirely him. I mean, mainly just him. I'm sure he had other writers, but he directed all of them. And he handed off this idea of this world and these characters to this other group and said, make a show out of this. And I'm sure Lucas had some input on that, definitely. I'm sure, like, he looked him over and said, yes, that's good, or whatever. He wasn't the main person on that show, Dave Filoni. He was the showrunner, pretty much. That was his baby. It was based off of Lucas's idea, but he's the one that took it in this new direction. It made this really great show. And this is from a world where people at the time were saying, how could this even work? Compare this world to, like, A New Hope. I mean, they're just completely different. They don't look alike. They don't talk the same. I mean, everything is just completely off. But Clone Wars came in and said, we're going to work with this. Again, not flawlessly. I mean, a lot of people say they don't like the first few seasons. I think they're still decent, but there are problems with it. There's still Jar Jar in there, but there's other problems too.
I would argue. So I watched all the Clone Wars. I didn't watch when it first came out. I watched it in 2017ish, something along those lines. So when this came out, I was in high school. So I was like, I was watching girls more than I was watching, the Clone Wars. But later, when I jumped back into it, I really enjoyed it. And he was right. I think the issue with the first two seasons is that you could say it's more kiddish, but they're kind of finding their footing. They found their footing by, like, the fourth season. The third season, they were almost there, but the third season still had some pretty cool parts about it. But really, when the fourth season hits off, that's when the Clone Wars really finds its footing. So that's what I would recommend if you haven't watched the Clone Wars yet. You're on the fence. The first three seasons are a little rough. Third season, like I said, isn't nearly as rough as the first two. But then the fourth season, that's when it starts picking up, and you're like, wow, this is good, and you keep watching. There is the occasional, like, droid episode where it's like 5 droids just walking around like, we're droids, here we go, here's all the antics. But while those filler episodes are there are still really good episode arcs in the entire show, especially when Darth Maul shows back up. That's when the show gets really good. So, yeah, if you haven't watched it, definitely check it out.
But they took it in a direction that made more sense, that kind of took this world that had all these plot holes and things that didn't add up and said, okay, well, how can we transform this into something that people can not only follow, but also really, really get into? That is one of the most difficult things to do, make the prequels, like, really interesting and complex and adult, even though this is supposed to be like a kid show. And there are some episodes that have more of, like, a kid show focus to it, but others are, like, really intense and
Okay, real quick, my argument is the prequels has always been deeper than the original trilogy. I know the original trilogy might be overall better quality films. That's fair. But as far as digging into the lore of the actual universe and, expanding upon different elements, I would definitely say that the prequels are better in that aspect to the original trilogy. That's my personal opinion. I also think that Revenge of the Sith is still the best Star Wars movie. I think that while Empire and A New Hope are better quality films, I think that when it comes to what makes a Star Wars movie, I think that Revenge of the Sith is the apex so far. I'll probably get some hate for that. I'll probably get some love. Who knows anymore? It doesn't matter. Let's keep going.
Really brutal. I think from that standpoint, maybe Lucas should still be a part of Star Wars, because I think famously known, he had ideas for what was going to be done in the sequel trilogy. Disney said, oh yeah, we'll get on that. Just never touched them.
Yeah, George pretty much explained it like that. He was like, hey, here's all the sequel trilogy ideas I have. And Disney was like, oh, you know what? Good job, George. You know what we're going to do? We're going to put it right here, right on the fridge, so everyone can see. Look at that. Good job. All right, get the hell out. So that's why I kind of feel bad for George, because, well, I shouldn't say I feel super bad for him. He made a lot of money off the sale. And he also wasn't forced to sell it, right? But I feel bad for him because Disney sold him the idea that he was still going to be involved. And once all the rights got moved over, they pushed him aside. So maybe he could have wrote that in his actual contract. I think it's just one of those things where like Kathleen Kennedy and even Bob Iger were like, hey, yeah, we'll definitely keep you in the loop, George. We're going to keep you in the loop. And then when they got that signature, they passed him aside. So that's sad, but also, you know, he got uber rich from it. So it is what it is.
They could have been bad. In fact, I'm probably going to put money on the fact that they were probably bad. But I think if you handed them off to other people that can make something with that, you could transform that into something interesting. And on top of that, the birthplace of these ideas would still be involved. And I think that is nice to have. At some point, I'll do like a Disney December review of Acolyte. I'll go into more detail about this. But a lot of people obsessed over stuff that I didn't care about. I mean, things like, you know, that penis head guy wasn't there originally. Lightsabers can't whip it. I don't give a goddamn about any of that. I have this weird thing where I focus on the characters and story. I'm really nuts that way, and that wasn't very good in there. But something that they did, I did go, boy, that doesn't feel right. That does kind of feel like a betrayal of the original idea. Without going too much into spoilers, is that it's an idea I didn't even like in the prequels, where Anakin is just kind of born from nothing. And, you know, kind of like a Jesus thing.
Yeah,
he's
like, Space Jesus.
Really lame and kind of hitting it on the nose, hammering it in and stuff like that. But at the same time, because the character doesn't turn out to be really this messiah, if anything, he's, you know,
the opposite.
They say he's going to bring balance. Well, he kind of brought it the
He's
other
kind of
way,
the
didn't it?
Antichrist in a way.
He made things get worse as opposed to better. And then, you know, Luke came along and kind of balanced things out again. So I like the idea that, okay, we'll serve this person appears from nothing, which again, it is pretty silly, but then what can you read from that where the character does not really make things better? If anything, his son does. You know, can you say, well, that then, you know, the essence of that person is still in there from that nothing, or even from that nothing that becomes something bad, it can transform into something good with the next offspring. There's things you can read into it that are kind of interesting, even though it has kind of a shaky foundation, in my opinion, a very lame foundation. I think you could have done better. And something that the show does, they have these characters that do that again. I think they do it twice. In fact, they're like, oh yeah, no, it's whatever, black magic mixed with science and stuff like that. It's kind of these witches. I don't know if they're like a version of the witches from Clone Wars.
Yeah, so they are kind of like that, but yeah, a lot of people are really mad by that. I'm disappointed by it, but I'm also not surprised that Disney would try to do something like that. Like I said, I'm pretty apathetic towards it. I'm hoping that one day one of these new Disney projects just like pulls me back into the universe, but for right now, I'm just disappointed. And I always knew that Disney Star Wars, or at least the people in the creative space, they didn't have respect for the actual creative universe that was in there. They were constantly doing stuff like that in the sequel trilogy. I always knew that. But I didn't really think they were going to fully mess up the whole Chosen One aspect. Because regardless of if you liked it or not, it is there. It has been there for, since the prequels, you know? Like, we've seen that. Anakin was the Chosen One. It's been set up that way. And, you know, he did complete the whole circle of life, technically, with that by the time he passed away. That's always been a fan theory going around that, like, Plagueis and Palpatine created Anakin. I don't know. It's an interesting idea, but I also like the idea that the Force was just like, hey, I got to get a Messiah out there to fix things. Sometimes that Messiah or that vessel doesn't always listen to what it's supposed to do, and it follows its own path, and bad things happen from it. I don't know. I just like that more. That's just me, though.
I don't know, but, you know, it's one of these things where it's like, okay, yeah, this is just something they can do now. And they're still like, whoa, you can do that? That's not a common thing in this universe. But I think it's very clear Lucas wanted that to be a one-time thing, you know, where from nothing this person is born. And now they're hinting very, very, very strongly that Anakin comes from something similar. There was never anything in the Lucas stories that indicated this could happen again. Where with this, I don't think you can really get that many interesting ideas from it, or that many interesting theories, and I feel it goes against what the original idea was, you know, or at least the foundation of that idea. That
it breaks it.
Other theories.
It breaks it.
So from that standpoint, I do kind of think maybe there is something to bringing Lucas back to work on this world again to be an idea man, like an Imagineer, if you will, just someone that comes up with the ideas, then hands it off to somebody else to make it work. Maybe there is something
Let's
there.
do it.
I don't
Just
know
do
if
it.
it would make
Just
sense
do it.
to do now, though. Star Wars has gone now this different direction. It has and it hasn't. That's what's so weird. Like, there is still a lot of repeating the same thing. They rhyme. I hate the fact that he ruined that line, because I love that line. I always like that idea of, like, you're not doing the same thing again. You generate something new, but it's very similar to the past. It's not just a repeat. I like that line. I hate that he ruined it because he made such bad, crappy prequels. Like Jar Jar's the key. Stuff like that. Like he ruined that. But I don't mind that idea, but I do feel like there's a lot of just straight up repeating, honestly. And there are times where I feel like it rhymes, but other times where I feel like you're just doing the same thing. You don't want to venture too far out. And honestly, you can kind of see why, if someone even, changes one minute thing that most viewers don't care about. I mean, there's like online petitions to get rid of the entire thing. I mean, there's so many different viewpoints of what Star Wars is now. There's Star Wars fatigue the same way there's like superhero fatigue. It's just something we're sick of and we're getting too much of. And what made Star Wars kind of interesting, even with, the lame prequels, they're kind of events. Somebody used to talk about Robert De Niro movies the same way. Now when he makes a movie, well, whatever, it's just another De Niro movie. But back then when he did a movie, people were like, whoa, this is an event. Why is he choosing this movie? Why is he doing this one? What does this mean? There was weight behind it. And now I feel like whenever a Star Wars anything comes out, there's not as much weight around. It has to earn the weight, which I do like. I do like that it has to try harder to justify itself. But, I don't even know.
Okay, I'll tell you what it is. Star Wars had the unicorn effect. It's the same thing with early MCU. It's the unicorn effect. You don't see a lot of unicorns, right? Have you ever seen one? I bet not. Maybe you have, but I bet you haven't. If you see a unicorn, wow, that's a really cool unicorn. That's awesome. Great. It moves on. A couple years later, hey, another unicorn. Wow, that's cool. Moves on. A couple years later, oh, look, another unicorn. Wow. And that just keeps happening, right? A couple years, it's cool to see that unicorn. It's just very surprising. Now, what if you see, oh, unicorn. Oh, another unicorn. Oh, another unicorn. Oh, another one. Another one. Oh, okay, they're just unicorns. Oh, okay. Well, I guess unicorns just exist. And I know what I'm saying sounds silly, but that is 100% the situation going on here. The unicorns are no longer special. And there you go.
I saw a trailer for another one. I just saw this suburban neighborhood in there, and I'm just like, all right, I don't see this as Star Wars. But who knows? I mean, they could connect it in some way where I'm like, whoa, that was brilliant. But kind of unlikely. The more I see modern things in Star Wars, the more I usually don't like it. I hate that cafe in Attack of the Clones. I don't like Luke's hippie haircut.
No,
I don't
that was
like
good.
Han Solo's disco shirt.
That was fine.
That's all stuff that just dates it, in my opinion.
No,
but I do see the
it was all
value
great. It was all
in
great.
getting lost in a world and getting lost in a mythos, even, and getting lost with these characters and everything. So I do see the value in it. I guess when it goes wrong, I don't let it ruin my day, kind of thing. Like, I play a character who gets super, super angry and just he always feels betrayed and everything. But I really don't think about it that much after. I like talking about it, as I'm doing here. I like talking about when something doesn't work, especially when it hilariously doesn't work. I think that's great fun. But yeah, and there are times where I'm certainly going to be disappointed. Oh man, I really wish it would go this direction. My thought is always that the more you can hear someone's point of view on something and discuss it and really take it in, the more you can find out about a person, and it's actually kind of interesting. Even if somebody hates something, you hear why and you have a conversation, you can really find out more about that person. So again, I think that's taking something that somebody would see as really bad, kind of turning into something positive, something that can, make you connect more. And you can do that through stuff you dislike and connect it to stuff that you have liked in the past, or vice versa. Something you didn't like and something became very, very good. I didn't have high hopes for Andor. It just looked like a nothing show to me. Rogue One's okay, but can you really do a show? Who even was that guy in Rogue One? I barely remember. But now it's my favorite Star Wars thing. Should Lucas come back? Right now, I don't know. In terms of just coming up with the ideas, I think there might be something there. And I think that could have helped still unify the Star Wars world that has been created. I don't know if it makes sense to bring him back now, because it has gone a different enough direction. But where's it gonna go now? I mean, is anyone...
Okay, so this is what I think. Bring George Lucas back. Give him an alternate universe where he's allowed to continue the Clone Wars, where the Clone Wars didn't end at Episode 3. It continued. Anakin didn't turn to the dark side right away, right? Ahsoka's still there. Maybe we can do like an alternate universe where the Clone Wars continued, and we can let George be in charge of that. George and Dave, they can work together, knock out some awesome seasons, and it can be just like a what if, obviously. I'll even work on it. You want to call me George? I'll help you out. And there could just be like this awesome alternate universe where the Clone Wars is able to just kind of flourish and expand to the heights we've never seen. It could even get to the point where maybe Luke and Leia would get born by that point, and Anakin would be torn between, I want to stay and be a father, but also I'm still a Jedi, so how am I supposed to, navigate this? And we could see that kind of happen. I don't know. I think that'd be really cool. I think what Star Wars needs to do at this point, because Disney doesn't seem to care anymore about the timelines and how the actual cohesiveness of the universe, they don't care about it anymore. Give us an alternate universe at this point. Give us the characters you like in an alternate universe, and just let George tell his story in a Clone Wars situation. I would watch that for sure. I would buy Disney Plus for that, and I would tell all my friends and all of you guys to also do that. But until we get something good, it's just not worth it. And I know Star Wars has had some pretty good stuff. When it comes to like Andor, people seem to really like that. I didn't hate the Kenobi show. There were some good aspects, but it definitely felt like it should have been a movie that they just needed to expand out as a TV show for Disney Plus. Same with Boba Fett and that perspective, and that became more of like Mando's season 2.5. I don't know. There's a lot of issues, and the one way to make it better, ultimately at this point, is to get rid of Kathleen and Kennedy, like I said. And there's another way. We could all just stop watching it, and Star Wars could die, and then in a couple years, maybe like 10 years, they could try to bring it back, and maybe we would have a new fire with someone who was actually good in charge. And I don't know. It's like I said, it's the unicorn effect. There's just too many unicorns now. One unicorn every so often is pretty cool. But once you see a bunch, they're just horses with horns by that point. Okay, let's finish up this video.
Excited about where it's gonna go. It would go a different direction than it is currently. And then I think that would also be really cool to sort of settle with people. All right, well, did this work bringing him back? Is this something we should have done from the beginning, or no, were his ideas just always not very good, and people now can't even salvage it, or he's out of ideas, kind of thing. At least it'd be good to know for certain. I think that'd be really interesting. With that said, I'd love to know your thoughts. Do you think that at the very least they should have gone off of his original ideas to see kind of what he had in mind and what he was trying to shape for this world, and maybe give it to people who were better sculptors than he was? That's probably the idea.
Yes.
He has a great idea for a sculpture, and then you hand it to an actual sculptor,
yes,
to make it happen. Do you think that should have happened, or do you think there was just nothing there? He just got lucky a few times. He always handed it off to the right people, and the prequels were terrible.
Okay, I'm just gonna, before we finish up this video, I'm just gonna add to that. Yes, that's what he should have did. He should have did that with the prequels. He kind of did that with the original trilogy from a certain perspective as well. He should have did it with the prequels. The prequels could have been better. A lot of people either hate the prequels or love the prequels. I understand their issues, but I can't call them bad movies, because overall they have enough good things in them that you can't call them bad movies like people like to say. But they could be amazing movies, and if they were, maybe George wouldn't have sold the franchise, and we would have gotten actually good Star Wars content. But I don't know. That's just me.
It was just going to make it worse. Or do you think just Star Wars should kind of slow down? I feel like a lot of people with everything Disney right now is saying, yeah, just slow down with stuff, because we're just not getting those pure movies or those pure shows where it feels like a lot of focus and energy is going into it. There's like too many deadlines. There's too much trying to meet that quota of getting enough merchandise out and all that stuff. I'd love to know your thoughts on that. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Take care.
All right, there you go, guys. So what do you think? Do you think that Doug's right? Do you agree with his ideas? Do you not agree? Do you think that George Lucas should return? I think it's worth a shot. Like, Disney can't get any lower, in my opinion, so it's worth the shot. Bring him in. See what he can do. I like the idea of an alternate Clone Wars universe. Like I said, George, if you're watching this, give me a ring. I'll definitely I'll join the writing team with that. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn notifications for more videos. And until next time, guys, I'll catch you later. Peace.